Hello, everybody. It's Friday. How is it Friday again? I do not know, but it is time for a live discussion about the real estate market. And we are going to get into it because our market is, it's crazy. We've kind of stalled out a little bit. As crazy as that sounds, I know everybody's talking about, although the inventory is rising and we have more sellers and buyers, but we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's really going on right now. And so I want to know where you're watching from. That's one of the first things I want to know. And as we go and we're talking, I'm going to bring my guest in here in just a second. But as we're going, we're talking, I want to know all your questions because that's what we're here to help with. Any questions that you might have, pop them in the chat, and we would love to answer them. But to talk about this, I'm gonna bring my friend Joe in. Hi, Joe.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I mean, it's Friday. It's a beautiful day. I don't know. I know you're in like the heat capital of the world.
I'm on the sun right now.
Yeah. And so I know that you have some history in our area, right? And so today I'm looking at a beautiful blue sky, and I think the high today is about 81 degrees.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful sky here. Well, yeah, that's not right. My watch says 104, but I think that yesterday we hit 115.
What?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're in the thick of it.
Yikes.
We are in the thick of it. So
yeah, and you know that I always tell people, so this is why I pay absurd property taxes and absurd gas prices and absurd real estate prices. It's literally for this.
I get it. I mean, I lived there for a long time, but I've been in Arizona longer than I was ever in California, but I grew up there. And California's a beautiful state.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it alone. Then I'm going to leave it alone from there.
Yes. I'm with you on that.
I know. Oh God. Well, our market is a little, it's a little crazy right now because we talked about this a little bit last week on the live. Inventory here, at least in Arizona, and Joe, for everybody watching, Joe's in California. Inventory has kind of flattened here, and it's kind of interesting. And I don't think it was expected. I think people thought our inventory was going to continue rising and rising and rising. Yep. It's normal in our luxury market. It's normal to see some of the higher end homes, like 3.5 million plus, come off the market during the summer. That's normal here. But for the rest of the market, it's not normal to just, we thought that it was going to keep going up, and we've literally flattened out. And I'll pull up a graph here in just a little bit. What are you guys seeing over there in California?
Yeah, so I think basically what the theme is, and I've talked about this a little bit on my live streams. I think what we're seeing now is we've always known that real estate is local and hyper local. Agents have been saying that, for a long time. And then, we had this weird period from 2020 to 2023 where all of a sudden real estate was like, it was not hyper local. It was very generic. Like we knew, okay, in the United States, if you were trying to sell a home, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. If you're trying to buy a home, it's like going through the worst gauntlet in the world. So, it was very easy to just kind of make a blanket statement. Real estate's hot, buyers are having a hard time, sellers are raking in the dough. And now I think what we're seeing, Shawn, is we're finally seeing real estate get back to that. It is hyper local again, because to your point, in my area, which for those that are watching, I'm about 35 miles east of downtown Los Angeles. I'm in LA County, but on the very, very eastern edge. And what we're seeing is we're actually seeing inventory. It's still increasing, not at a breakneck pace, but we're still gaining. So when we look at week over week, we're still gaining inventory. And we still do have a decent buyer demand. And basically what we're seeing is that if you have a new listing, and it's priced well and it's presented well, it's going to sell just fine. And those properties that are either overpriced, not presented well, or they have a significant character flaw, like maybe their location's really tough on a busy street, or maybe they have an awkwardly shaped lot, or they're in a very high fire hazard zone. Those are the properties that are starting to rack up days on market and become a little less desirable as buyers become a little bit more picky.
Yeah, that's interesting with that. I mean, we have some of the same as far as like if the home isn't presented well, all of that, it's going to sit on the market a little bit longer.
Yep.
But there, right, it's the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Here, interestingly enough, like people here look at air conditioning units, they look at roofs, and then some of the other kind of updating things. Like what's interesting, this is really interesting to me, because like in California where you are, I know, because there's homes that are in the like 50s and 60s and even older.
Oh yeah, I would say a large majority of homes in my market, 50s, 60s, 70s, that's most homes. It's
Right.
not normal. When I see a home that's 1990 or newer, I'm like, ooh, it's a baby.
Right. And most of the homes that we've got here, like 1990s, and people are like, oh, it's kind of old. And but it's still dated if it hasn't been updated, because we're
Right.
still
Yeah,
talking maybe some brass, you
Yep.
know, and I know gold
The
is back,
golden
but
oak.
it is not the gold that you see out there. That's, you know, the trend.
Right.
It's the brass.
Yep.
And you know, it's the older flooring maybe, and you know, maybe somebody's updated some room but not the other, and so we'll see like 3 or 4, sometimes 5 different types of flooring in a house. Those are the kinds of things right now for buyers that they're like, it's just a lot to take on.
No,
And
you're
then
right.
if the roof isn't redone and the air conditioner is old, that's like triple whammy, that they're like, oh man, there's a lot to do with this house.
Yep.
And so we're seeing those buyers, you know, again, like we were talking before we came on this, that when in the heat of it, like you were talking about, there were times that I was saying to you, I remember I would be done with one client. They would go, this is the house we want to make an offer on. I'm like, okay, I got to go with another client. I would have my computer with me in my car, and I would drive to the next house, you know, where I was meeting my next client, and I would start typing the contract in my car, you know, and then they would get there and I go, okay. And I'd bring my contract or my laptop in the house, and they were there, and I'm like, I just got to finish this really quick and get it over them for signing, because I got to get this. You know, we just had no time.
Yeah.
Time was like, it was so fast.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And that's why I think, you know, the homes with the 4 different flooring choices, with the tired AC, with the aging roof, those homes 2 years ago were like, people were like, I'll just take what I can get. Like I could fix it. And at that point, interest rates were much more agreeable. Right. Prices were still running up, but not as high as they are today. So buyers had the ability to go, okay, you know what? So I'm going to spend $500K on this, and it needs another $50K, but I need a house. I want it now. The affordability is good. Okay, I'll do that over time. Now what we're seeing is those same buyers go, I'm not just going to take what I can get.
Right.
I am going to be more diligent. I am going to do more research. I am going to be more picky. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to inherit your bad roof, especially at premium pricing and high interest rates.
Right. 100%. 100%. And so what they're being met with right now is inventory.
Yes.
Right. And so that's what we're going to jump into right now, because this is very interesting. This is an article out of Redfin, and it says some would-be sellers are stepping back as the market tilts towards buyers. And again, I said this last week. Adolfo, hi from Florida. Thanks for chiming in. I said this last week. Buyers, it's very interesting. Buyers don't love buying in a buyer's market. Even though it's a buyer's market. And so all the signs point towards, I can negotiate on the price. I can negotiate on repairs. I can negotiate on all these things, but they don't love buying in those markets, because they go, but what if it goes lower?
Yes.
What if it goes lower? And Tina, my friend that does the Cromford Report here, she always says that. She's like, the problem with that thought process is you do not know when you're at the bottom until you're 6 months out of it.
Correct.
So, or the top, by the way.
Yep.
But you don't know that for 6 months. So it's all luck. You cannot time it.
No, you absolutely can't, which is why I love the saying, time in the market, not timing the market. Exactly. Right? Like that's what's more important.
Exactly.
And I understand why buyers, I get it. I understand, Shawn. Look, if you're buying a home and you're going to, I'm just gonna say $500K, because that's about the national average. But we know in our markets, and in a lot of markets, $500K is but a drop in the bucket, right? So we're talking about $800K, $900K for a starter home. And if you pay that amount of money, nobody ever wants to hear, hey, you just paid $900,000 for something, and 3 months later, now it's only worth $850. Doesn't that kind of suck? You're like, oh, that does suck. But are you selling the home?
Right. Exactly.
You know, are you buying this home with the anticipation of selling it in 6 to 12 months?
Right.
Because if that's the case, you should not be buying a home to begin
100%
with.
agree.
Right. So
100% agree.
So, you know, I feel like these buyers that have some objections to purchasing in a buyer's market, or with the fear of, you know, what we hear all the time, Shawn, oh, the housing market crash, it could happen anytime. We don't know. I don't want to fall victim to it. Right. And the moral of the story is this: those people that are afraid about a large real estate crash, it's probably because their parents got burned hard in 2008. Or a family member or a friend, right? And it's still staying with them. But if you're not looking to sell your home and you don't lose your job, you still have your same income that you had when you bought it, then it's a moot point if the value of it goes down, because you're not selling it anyway. So,
right.
But that is, and
again, historically over time, if you look at the long run, right? Real estate usually appreciates at least at the rate of inflation, and oftentimes higher.
Yes. Well, and I tell all those buyers, you know, that they're like, oh, we want to time the market, we want to get it better. I'm like, well, okay, you want to time the market. Well, you already missed it. You missed it in 2018, 2019, 2020, because if you would have owned a home before 2020, in 21 and 22, you would have had about a 23% appreciation in those 2 years alone.
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy. I know. All right. So let's see what this article says. So many prospective home buyers are sidelined by near record costs and economic uncertainty, creating a buyer's market in many parts of the country. That's deterring some would-be sellers. This is interesting to me. New listings of U.S. homes for sale rose 6.3% year over year during the 4 weeks ending June 1, one of the smallest increases of the last 3 months. New listings declined year over year in 11 of the 50 most populous U.S. metros, with the biggest drops in San Jose, California, and 4 Florida metros: Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, and West Palm Beach.
I feel like Florida is in every single real estate article. I mean, Florida is just like maybe Adolfo. I'm sorry, Adolfo, if you're still hanging out. Like,
I feel like poor Florida is just getting kicked in the teeth right now with the hurricanes and the insurance, everything.
The condo buildings and all the condo rules that are coming out, and insurance. It's just like, oh, Florida's having a rough go.
I know. Okay, so zooming in on recent weeks, new listings fell during the second half of May. While it's typical for listings to decline after peaking in mid-May, this year's drop was the biggest for that time period in a decade. On the buying side, pending home sales declined 0.4% year over year to the lowest May level since 2020, and mortgage purchase applications fell 3% week over week. Prospective buyers are backing off because housing costs are near record highs, with the median home sale price up 1.2% year over year and the weekly average mortgage rate approaching 7%. And because the U.S. economy is unpredictable.
Yep.
While there are hundreds of thousands more homes. Okay, this is something we've been talking about, and I will get into this. Well, there are hundreds of thousands more home sellers than buyers in the market, and new listings are still rising. The recent decline in listings suggests some of the springs would-be sellers are backing off. The typical home now sells for about 1% less than its asking price, the biggest discount for this time of year since 2020, and just about 28% of the homes sell above their asking price, down from 32 at this time last year.
Okay, so look at that. Just the whole crash. Oh God, crash, right? And I've said this before. In fact, I think I might have even said this on your stream. I know I've said it on Jackie and Jen's.
Yeah.
It's so funny. We have no inventory, and everybody's clamoring. We need inventory.
Yeah.
We need to give buyers an opportunity to buy a home. We need to
lower
lower
price.
We need to raise inventory, and then all of a sudden, we get a pop in inventory. And all the crash bros are like, see, it's all falling down around us. And if you look at that article that we just had on, well, what was it? 1%, most homes are 1% of their sale price. While it was still like 28% were still selling for over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge number.
I mean, before the pandemic, I would love to know what that percentage rate was for the amount of homes selling over the list price before the pandemic.
And it probably just as an anecdotal, from my experience in my area, because I've been active in real estate since 2013 in this area. So I have some good pre-pandemic timeframe. I would say maybe 10% of homes sold for over
I think that, I know, I still feel like that's high. And I mean, I've been doing this since 1998.
Yeah, I'd say maybe 500. And I'm in a major market competitive, LA County. You're in a major market competitive, right? I mean, still homes selling 25% of homes selling over their asking price. People, there is still a significant supply and demand issue. Yes, things are changing. And especially when we start looking at local areas, they could change further. But the idea that the crash is imminent, I mean, those two sentences right there, just those two data points kind of blow that theory to shreds.
100%. Well, not just that, like in this article, they start touching on the other article that was big for Redfin a few weeks ago about there's 500,000 more home sellers than there are buyers and the whole thing. But if you really start to look at it, it's inaccurate. And the reason that it's inaccurate is the way that they get their data. Their methodology for getting their data is just skewed because they're looking at actives. They're not looking at actually like the sold homes.
Right.
And so it's completely skewed. That being said, here I can tell you, and I can pull up a chart. Our inventory is flattening out. We are not. We were increasing, and our inventory is flattening out. I want to bring this up. Sorry, I just hit my mic. I want to bring this up just because this shows you here locally. This is our list price to sales price ratio. This is across our entire market, right? This is not, if I start playing with the cities and the price points and stuff like that, it's going to jump around. But this is 97%. Now, the question that always comes when I show something like this is that, well, is that from the original list price or the final list price before it went under contract? And it's from the final list price. So that tells me always, right, that some of those homes, they were all overpriced. So, because we have to look at how many price reductions we're seeing here, and we're seeing a lot. So a lot of them are having to reduce their price, and then they're also still having to take 97.2% of their list price.
And I think that's one of the key things to hone in on if you are a seller in this market right now, is that it's not 2021, 22, 23 anymore. And so if you're a seller and you've got these dreams of, I'm going to list, I had an agent come over and the agent told me, hey, I think your home's worth 700. Well, I want to go for 725 and I still want to get multiple offers and I don't want to have to pay a buyer's agent. I don't want to pay for a termite report. I don't want to do this. That's gone. That's over. That's over. Unless you're in New Jersey or like Connecticut, where the Northeast is still firing. And even then they're starting to show signs.
I was just going to say I think the last markets that are still kind of hot. Most of the markets, most of the buyers that I have coming in from other states, they are all telling me like, no, our market's still hot. Our market's still hot. By the time they get their house on the market and they find a house here, their house is taking a little while to sell. I've got 2 right now that I can think of. And they're both, one of them's at least 3 weeks on the market. The other one's maybe 4. And, they're having to make some price reductions. They're having to kind of do some things that they didn't think they were going to do because it flipped that fast for them.
It did. It's really shifted. I mean, I had a conversation with my broker about a week ago and we both kind of turned to each other and went like, what's happened in the last 30 to 40 days? Because, and for those of you watching that maybe, aren't as savvy into real estate, 30 to 40 days to have a noticeable market shift, that might as well be overnight. I mean, that is extremely fast. Most market shifts a fast market shift would be 3 months. And most of them are like,
well, we always talk about that. Like to really shift the market, it's like a big cruise liner, a big ship, right? It takes a long time for it to actually turn. And I feel the same way. Like we kind of saw a shift quickly. So Jim, if the doomsdayers were correct, all new builds would be stopping. But I have heard of at least 3 large East Valley developments. Builders don't build in a crash. No, you're 100% right. And I will tell you, this is my thought on this. And I've talked to a few of them. They got burned so bad, especially here in 2008. They will not overbuild. They just won't.
This is something that the crash bros and the doomsdayers, they love to hit this and they love to point to unsold housing inventory and low builder confidence. But you're exactly right. the way that builders built homes changed in 2008, 9, and 10, and it will never be the same again.
Mm-hmm.
New homes are now being basically built to order.
Right.
Where before it was build 300, then sell 300. Now
they would get those people that would come in and they were buying, they would want to build their own, but then there are other people that are like, I can't wait. So like, oh great, I've got these 5 models out here that are already under construction. You could buy one of those, or we've got these 10. They're not doing that anymore.
No.
That's not to say that some of these new home construction places don't have a couple, quick delivery homes out there. They do, but it's like 3 versus 10.
Right.
And they are not building anymore unless those sell. They just are not.
And what we're seeing, at least in my area, is more phases that are smaller. And I believe that's happening. So it's almost like a check system for the builder. So he doesn't have to commit, okay, instead of me building 2 phases of 50 homes, I'm going to build 4 phases of 25.
Yeah.
And then if sales start to trickle out halfway through phase 2, maybe we wipe out phase 4. Maybe we just don't even build it.
What I'm seeing here is they're not even really doing like phases like that anymore. They will release 2 lots.
Wow. And that's
like
smart.
We have 2 lots that are available. The rest we're holding.
And that makes sense, because if these builders, it really makes perfect sense. The more that builders build, the more inventory there is. And then they're shooting themselves in the foot by oversupplying the market. So they finally went, wait a minute, let's pull back, build less, build slower, and then we can make sure that the demand is there. Now they run the risk of not selling as many homes, but that's why they have a whole department of accountants to figure out what pace they need to build at.
Right. I agree with you. Okay, let me jump back over here. I'm going to pop this back in. Okay. So it says, if a home is in a desirable neighborhood, especially if it's fixed up, it will sell fairly quickly. What we were just talking about. But even that type of home now gets 2 or 3 offers as opposed to 10 offers it would have gotten a few years ago. Sellers of homes that need work on fringe neighborhoods should be able to find a buyer, but it's important that they come to the table with realistic expectations on price and timing, and a willingness to negotiate. Price within a fair range based on neighborhood. Understand that buyers will be inspecting the home and be prepared to give concessions. And I mean, I will say this, I don't know about you, but we, in our market, even when it was crazy, like I never, ever, ever had a buyer buy a house without doing an inspection.
I tell my buyers that I mean, this is as frank and forceful as I'll go with my buyers. I will tell them, I will not represent you unless you have an inspection.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
it's just so risky. And I've made one exception that I have one client who he's an investor. He's a flipper. He's a rehabber. He's a contractor. And I'm like, Justin, do your thing, man. Like, I know you know what you're doing. But if you're just a regular end consumer, like this is going to be your home, and you're like, oh, I don't want the home inspection. I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. You're getting a home inspection because it's going to protect. This is too much liability. It's too much exposure. And it only costs $600-800. Just do it.
Yeah. You just don't know. And I mean, again, we were writing contracts for sure that were as is. Like you could do the inspection and you had 2 choices at that point: move forward or back out. Like that was it. Yep. But they had to have an inspection because you have to know what you're getting into.
You have to.
There's been too many times. I mean, I can't say like a ton, but there have been for sure times that I've had buyers that I thought the house was, it's going to have some stuff, but I didn't think anything was major, and something major has come up and I'm like, oof. And there's no way that I would have known, that they would have known. Absolutely no way. No way. Yeah. One of them, there was cut trusses in the attic.
Yeah. And like one that I had, house was older, but it was maintained pretty well. Like it was in good condition, even though it was older. This is a home that was built in the mid 60s, late 60s. And everything worked good. Inspector going around doing his thing. And he's looking at the panel and he goes, oh, just so you guys know, this panel works fine, but it's an older panel. It's original to the house and it has been recalled for potential fire issues. Oh, gosh. Okay. If we don't have that inspection, we go, hey, look, electrical works. Everything's great. So what did we do? I said, we're going to go back to the seller. We're not going to ask them to put in a new panel. That would be a little ridiculous. This one does work, but it is a point of safety concern. And we asked for some money and we got several $1,000s based on that. So Shawn, do you think that inspection was worth it? Pay $800 to get back to $3,000? I think that probably worked out well.
Yeah. Jillian, I can't imagine ever not having an inspection. Me either. It's not wise.
No,
it's not wise. I've started adding some other inspections on to, and telling my clients I would highly suggest doing a sewer scope and, a couple other things. And they're like, really? Do you really think that's important? I'm like, I do.
Yep.
I do. I would get it checked out.
Insurance. I mean, even if you said, okay, I had a client that comes to me and says, Joe, I want the Cadillac package of inspection. I want everything inspected that you can inspect. We're talking $1,500, maybe $2,000, maybe if you get every inspection, every normal inspection. Well, if you're buying an $800,000 house, $2,000.
Right.
I don't know. Right. It's pretty cheap.
I know. I agree with you. I think it's important, but for sellers right now, I think the big thing is that you've got to make sure your house is, I was in an inspection today, and one of the things that came up was the filters were dirty, filthy. To me, like stuff like that shouldn't be happening.
No. And to me as a buyer's agent, if I see stuff like that, my first remark to my buyer and my client who I'm trying to protect their interest is, if these people can't replace an air filter, which is home maintenance 101. I mean, the most basic form, how else did they take care of everything else?
Yeah.
How is everything else maintained, taken care of? Yikes. That scares me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Jillian says, one of your biggest investments ever in life. I think it pays for itself. I agree with you. Yep. I mean, you can't, I don't think that's something that you can skip, but
no.
So, I mean, I think back to as far as what the housing market is doing right now, it's very interesting. Like I said, I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to look for, I'm not going to make you guys watch me, find it, but it's very interesting here. We've even, for our inventory. Oh gosh, there we go. This is what our inventory looks like right now. So it's really interesting. Like we were climbing, and then we leveled off, and we've actually dropped a little bit and then leveled off. And every dot here is a week of how many how many this is active listings on a weekly count. And so this was 2024. This was last year. And this was 2023. And this was 2022. I mean, 5,000,
Wow.
It was just so crazy.
Wow.
And this big run up was when all the home builders dumped all their inventory into MLS. But this is what we're seeing right now. Mm-hmm. A lot of. So it's interesting. Go ahead.
You can see that that's very abnormal. I mean, just in the past few years to have it ramp up early, because it seems like you guys get kind of your pop in inventory, which is very interesting in the fourth quarter of the year.
Well, we can. So here's 2021 down here, the blue line. They just started tracking this in 2021 on this chart. They've got it in a few different other ones. But normally our inventory will rise in the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. It'll kind of rise up in the beginning of the year. It'll start to kind of come down just a little bit right now, but then it'll start ramping back up towards the end of the year, because again, our market is very different than a lot of other people's, because our market is not, summertime is not generally a hot time in our market.
It's like reverse seasonality.
Totally.
Yeah.
Our market the time of our year that when the market starts heating up a ton is right about mid-January to the beginning of February. And then our market really starts to heat up, and we're hot from that time until like April, May.
Interesting.
That's when our weather's perfect and everyone's visiting.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
Jim says all of this will be fixed when/if rates drop, even though 7 to 7.5 is not historically bad. I agree with you. I mean, we talk about this all the time. And I think that part of it is, I really believe that part of the reason that the interest rate is such a big deal right now is twofold. One, we just came out of some historically low interest rates, and it's very hard for people to justify or to like really put into perspective that that was the abnormal part. What we're in right now, this is really normal.
Right.
And they look at it and they go, but I wanted that. So they got a little FOMO of what they didn't get. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. So, but thanks. Feds will only drop rates after economy is cratered. Look at the history of rate drops for proof. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, there's some articles that have been out lately that now they're questioning whether the Fed is going to drop the rate at all this year. Some people are saying now that we're only going to get one. I think that after the last meeting, Jerome Powell said that he's going to wait and see what happens in this next kind of cycle and then determine what they're going to do. Yep. I still think we could see maybe one rate drop this year, but I don't think it's going to be dramatic.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's going to affect that much.
Well, and also keep in mind, Shawn, remember we had rate drops in December. We had the Fed funds cut their rate in December. And what happened to mortgage rates?
They went up.
Right?
I know. So which is the thing that people, they just don't get, because the reality, what we need to be watching is the 10-year treasury.
10-year treasury. Yes, that's exactly right. And we know that the Fed is what they're keyed on is inflation and unemployment. Mm-hmm. That's what they're looking for. Those are the two drivers of the Fed's decision. And then the 10-year is a function of both of those things. Hence, interest rates are a function of all three, right? So the good news is inflation is trending in a great direction because prices of homes and rents have stopped going up at an astronomical pace. And the biggest driver of inflation and core CPI was housing.
Right, because that's the biggest chunk.
Bingo. So because housing has pulled back a little bit, we're seeing inflation pull back, which is good. And even the labor market is it's starting to show the smallest signs that maybe some more jobs are becoming available or open, which means more people are unemployed. And that's unfortunately what the Fed wants to see. I think we will see a rate cut. I think we'll see a rate cut in September. I think it will be maybe, their baby cut, which is going to be between a quarter and a half basis points.
I think it's going to be a quarter. I don't think they'll go to a half.
I think a quarter is much more likely. And I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't change mortgage interest rates a whole lot. And let's sprinkle in some tariff uncertainty and now some geopolitical conflict going on.
Right.
And now it's anybody's guess.
Right. So Maria asked, what's your prediction for interest rates?
Oh, look at that.
Like this? I don't know. Literally, there's no way to predict. Here's my kind of ballpark prediction. I don't think we're going to see anything massive change with interest rates this year.
I agree.
Maybe we'll see it come down a little bit next year, but even that, with what all the things that Joe just mentioned, I think that throws a wrench into some of it and what is going to happen.
I think just to make a long story short, I think it's just the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty still. I think Jerome Powell senses that, and that's why he's like, Now we can go back and forth on whether you agree or disagree, but that's what it looks like is happening. Economic uncertainty in the form of tariffs, inflation, and Jerome Powell saying, I don't want to do anything that could rock the boat further.
Right. Jim he says, also keep in mind that the Fed rate is only a small portion of what affects the mortgage rates. 100%. You're right.
That's a good point.
So he said, I don't think the Fed will drop rates. They are trying to discipline the labor market. Every time they drop rates, unemployment drops hard. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen an unemployment drop hard. I mean, in fact, in Arizona, we are above the national average for unemployment. Like we are below the national average for unemployment. Our unemployment here is not even where at 4%, 4.2, whatever the unemployment rate is here. I know that what Jerome Powell has kind of said is like jobs. We're looking at jobs. I've heard him say that multiple times. So I don't want to say that you're 100% wrong in that. I do think that he's watching the labor markets there.
Yeah. And I agree with that statement that, yes, I don't think the Fed will drop rates. I think if they do, it's going to be, I think if the Fed drops rates, it could be solely to appease Pulte and Trump and so that Powell can say, there you go, I gave you your quarter rate cut. There you go. But I don't think it's going to make any significant difference. And it's not going to, I don't believe it will be a major drop.
Okay. Snug Life says, late on this, but the time in the market beats timing. Thing really takes seriously a home as pure financial investment when we know it's also a home. I think I understand what you mean.
Yeah. And that's exactly why you should try to time the market, because it's a home. It's not just an investment. And
this is something that I talk to people about all the time when they say, well, maybe I should just rent for a while. I'm like, okay, so let's just talk about that. Because if you talk to a lender and you cannot afford it, or it's stretching you too much and you feel uncomfortable, do not buy. Absolutely go rent. 100% go rent. I am not a proponent of stretching yourself so that you're uncomfortable in owning a house. However, if you can buy a house and get into it and you're okay. I always tell people, you're going to feel, when you look at the numbers, if it's more than what you're paying now, when you look at the numbers, you're going to be worried, right? You're going to go, oh my gosh, can I afford it? Can I not? And within like the first few months, you're going to go, why was I worried about this? Like, this is, I'm really okay with this. And I don't know about you, but I don't love moving a lot. So the thought of renting, twofold, right? One, as soon as your lease is up, your landlord can raise your rent. So it's not consistent. You're consistent maybe for a year.
Yeah.
But it can change year over year. And what if they decide, and I've had this happen, what if they decide, you know what? I had this as an investment until I wanted to move here. Now I want to move here. We're not renewing your lease. Now you got to go find some place new to live.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things about, deciding to rent. You're exactly right, Shawn. If you simply cannot afford the home, then don't stretch yourself, right? It needs to make financial sense. But one of the biggest things with renting is you don't control your destiny. And that, to me, I don't know. I don't like the idea of someone leaving a note on my door that says, hey, you got 60 days.
Right.
Thanks for living here for 3 years, but you got 60 days to figure it out.
Thanks for paying my mortgage, but it's time to go.
Bye-bye.
I'm with you. Okay. Omega Royale says the Fed has been declared bankrupt and has been merged with the Department of Treasury and is now just a department within the Department of Treasury. Have a nice day.
Okay. Appreciate the update.
Right. Thank you. Snug Life. People waiting for a better deal. They might be waiting for a better home, not a lower priced same home, especially since many homes don't seem worth it. I don't disagree with you there. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing right now with buyers that are just like, look, I'm going to take my time. I want to find the house that I really want. Yeah, they're picky. And they can be.
Yep. And now buyers have the ability to be a little bit more in the driver's seat. I mean, for the last 5 years, not only were buyers not in the driver's seat, they weren't riding shotgun. They weren't in the back seat either. They were in the trunk. They got stuffed in the trunk by these sellers. And now we're finally starting to see buyers are like, hey, look at me. I'm in the back seat again. See me back here. And I'm going to work my way up to the front seat. And pretty soon I'm going to be driving this bus. And then the seller's going to have to play by their rules.
We're seeing a little bit of that right now. And honestly, I feel like we've got some buyers that are like, yes, I can now stick it to the seller. And the sellers are like, okay, I'm willing to play ball, but I'm not going to get ridiculous.
Because, and that's something that buyers need to realize too, is remember, your sellers, very, very few sellers out there have a forced sell, right? Very few have to sell their home. Most of them just want to. And a lot of these sellers are sitting on 2.8 to 3.2% interest rates. If they can't sell or won't sell, they can rent out their house, or they can just continue to live there for pennies on the dollar, and they can continue. So yes, buyers, you have a little bit longer of a leash, you have a little bit more power, but it's not carte blanche.
No, exactly. So Maria says, thanks. You're so welcome. Thanks for being here. Carl says, learn how to invest your money. Then you'll be able to afford a house. No problem. I don't disagree with that.
That's a true statement. Yeah.
You'll have to have a 3-car garage these days, one for the Lamborghini, one for the Tesla electric car, and one for the lawnmower. We don't have lawn. We don't have a lot of grass over here. Most people put in fake grass. You don't need your lawnmower anymore. Your landlord is your wife. You got to pay her money first before you can have anything else in the house. Carl, you're speaking my language. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If you decide to rent and get 5 of your favorite friends to live in the house with you and let them pay the whole thing, just don't tell them how much your rent is, but divide it out equally. That's what some people are doing. There are some kids I know, their parents have taught them this. They're like, look, we're going to help you buy a house. And I know it's going to feel like a stretch. I know it's going to feel, but you know, you're going to get your friends and they're all going to move in with you and they're all going to pay us rent.
Was my first house. My first house was one of my friend's dads buying a home in 2011. So post crash, right? It's kind of right that market. And he bought the home and he said, hey, you are going to live in here. And I want you to find 3 of your most responsible friends and rent them rooms. And that's what we did. And we got really cheap rent. He got to make some money. We got a house that was really cool, really nice. It worked out great. It was a lot of fun.
Well, and then you can stay there for a long time. I mean, now you have a little bit more control in your living situation, right? Because now you know who owns the house.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
All right. I want to bring this article up because this kind of goes to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So it says 1 in 3 baby boomers say they will never sell their home. An additional 30% of baby boomers who own their home say they'll hold onto it for at least a decade. 1/3 or 33.5% of baby boomers who own their home say they'll never sell, according to a recent Redfin Commission survey. Another 30% they'll sell their home at some point, but not within the next decade. Older people are even less likely to sell, with nearly half at 44.6% of silent generation members never planning to sell. Younger homeowners are more likely to eventually part ways with their houses. 25% of Gen Xers and 21% of millennial Gen Zers say they'll never sell. You guys are too young to say that, by the way. Yep. The survey finding in this report are from the Redfin Commission survey conducted by, in May, whatever, fielded to roughly 4,000 U.S. residents. This report focuses on homeowners who answered a question about when they are likely to sell their home. 170 members of the silent generation, 718 baby boomers, 343 Gen Xers, and 382 millennial or Gen Zers. The second section of the report focuses on homeowners who answered a question about why they are not selling. 519 baby boomers, 283 Gen Xers, and 171 millennial Gen Zers. There are several financial and lifestyle reasons why older Americans are much more likely than younger Americans to stay put. Many baby boomers who own their home don't have a financial incentive to sell. Additionally, many older homeowners have lived in their home for a long time and simply prefer to stay put. Roughly 2/3 or 67% of baby boomer homeowners have lived in their home for 16 plus years. When asked in the survey why they're staying in their current home, most baby boomers, or 55%, said they just like their home and have no reason to move, making it the most commonly cited reason. The next most common reason are financial. 30% of their home is almost or completely paid off. 16% said today's home prices are too high, and 8% don't want to give up their low mortgage rates. Housing costs have risen significantly over the last several years. Home prices are up roughly 40% since pre-pandemic, and mortgage rates are near 7%, up from about 4% before the pandemic. Nearly 1/3 of baby boomers who own their homes say they couldn't afford a home like theirs in their neighborhood today. Older Americans hanging on to their homes is one of the reasons it's difficult for younger Americans to find and afford houses, especially houses large enough to fit a family. Nearly 9 in 10 of the homes owned by baby boomers are single-family homes. Just about 5% are condos and 4% are townhomes. In 2024, Redfin analysts found that baby boomers are twice as likely to own large homes as millennials. Meanwhile, more than 70% of millennials and Gen Z homeowners have minor children living in their home, compared to 4% of baby boomers. It says, while inventory is improving, supply is tight for young house hunters looking for family homes, especially in suburban areas where home price like starter homes, yet large enough for families, are scarce. And Redfin chief economist Daryl Fairweather, with baby boomers opting to age in place rather than sell, it's challenging for young buyers to find affordable options that fit their lifestyle. Yeah. But it's worth noting that even though many older Americans say they're not planning to sell their homes, many are likely to eventually part ways as it becomes harder to live independently and or keep up with maintenance. And that's, I think, one of the things that we're seeing, one of the things we're seeing right now. Mm-hmm. That there are people that are older that have lived in their home. I mean, I've got somebody right now that's looking to move from Idaho, but wants to come here and they want to buy their forever home, and they're not young necessarily. but they're like, look, we want to figure out where we can live forever. We don't want to move again.
Right. And that's something that I think more and more Gen Zs and even Gen X and millennials that are in the, home buying, I hear a lot of people my age are like, I don't want a house. I don't want a 2-story house because I know what that means. I know that at some point it's going to get difficult for me. And I think too, with older people staying in their homes, I think, older people are living longer. They're staying healthier longer, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest advancements in medical technology is, people are having better, more fulfilling lives the older they get. And, if they don't need to move, why would they? They've got a home that's paid off. They've got a low mortgage rate. They know where they are. They know their home. They know their neighborhood. And if you're 75, 80 years old, why would you want to start over now?
Carl says there's nothing wrong with a 2-story house. Just make sure you put in an elevator.
Bingo, Carl.
I know.
Just wave the wand, elevator.
Do you know how many people that I have had clients that have either had an elevator in their house previously, or they're looking at a house that has an elevator and they all say the same thing? I will never step foot in that elevator. I will not use it. I will not use it. And not because they don't like, they're like, I'm just afraid I'm going to get stuck in it, or it's too small. I feel claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Older people are partying. I think you mean less. Older people are partying less. That means drinking less. And many of them do not smoke any cigarettes, which means they will live much longer than age 70. I hope so.
That's true. That's true. Just between basic medical knowledge and then all the technological advancements. Yeah. People are going to start living a heck of a lot longer.
I know. There was somebody, there's a guy that he's got a documentary, I think on Netflix, like Never Die or something like that. And I saw him on an interview recently and he said, no, I don't think I'm ever going to die. And I'm like,
well, good luck with that, sir.
I know. I mean, really, but
Father Time is undefeated. So
it is. I know. I mean, people are living longer. And I think one of the things too, it depends on if they live, near their kids or their family.
Yeah.
But if they don't, I think their idea of keeping the house that they've lived in with that space so that their family can then come and stay with them.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a comfort for some.
Yeah.
I've kind of seen that where if they live closer to their family, they get to a point that the people that I've seen, at least, they go, you know what? I don't want to keep maintaining this house.
Right.
It's getting to be too much.
There's too much.
I want to downsize. I still want a house. I'm not ready to like move into like a assisted living facility or whatever, but I just need a smaller house because this is a lot to maintain.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing some of that too. And then, I mean, there's those people that just really that they want to stay in their house until the day they die. And I say all the power to you if that's what you want to do. And it's safe.
Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting thing. And I see it myself with, some of the people that are out there looking, their younger family, they live in a house right now. They own their house, but it's too small. They've outgrown it. And now they need more space, and finding that more space in the area that they want to be in that is updated, that is in a price point that they can be in. And I mean, these guys aren't looking necessarily for like $500,000 houses. They're looking for houses that are, in a little bit higher price point.
Yep.
But still, it can be challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be challenging. So it's interesting because, again, our market, as much as we started seeing inventory go up and go up and go up, I think people are kind of starting to pull back, which is crazy because right now, I mean, I think that's the reason maybe sellers are deciding to not sell also in some ways is I can't get what I could have gotten. Therefore, I'm not going to sell. I don't have to sell. Therefore, I'm not going to sell.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I agree completely.
Yeah. So a lot of older homes are huge and can easily accommodate more than just a mother and father. They are a deal for people starting out, learning how to save money and to put as much down as they, I think he's probably typing some more. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing though with that, and I don't know what else he's going to say, but I know when I was younger, if my parents had a big house and they said, look, why don't you come live with me? You and your husband come and live with us for a while and save money. I don't know that I would have wanted to do that. I know some people might, but I don't think I would have wanted to do that.
Yeah, that would be tough. I mean, I get it, and you know, I understand that in lots of different parts of the world, that's the culture, right?
Right.
Like the
Totally.
multi-generational living, right? It's like your parents, and then it's your grandparents, then it's you, and you're a young adult, and then you know you might get married, and then you know she might move in with your family or whatever the case may be. But I agree with you. I think that you know Western culture, I think we're going to come back to a point where mom and dad are going to come back and live with me as an adult in my 40s or 50s when mom and dad are 80 and 90, like that type of thing, I think could become more common as time moves on. But I don't think in Western culture, we're going to get to the point where it's like, oh, my grandma lives at home, my parents live at home, and then me and my wife also live in the same home.
Right. And I don't know if it's that just that we're all used to having our own space. I don't know what it is because it's not, I mean, my parents don't live with me, but they're older and I help take care of them, you know? So it's not, I mean, my sister and I are very much involved in caring for them. They don't go to the doctor by themselves anymore, like all of that. But having them live in our house with our kids, that would be extremely challenging.
Yeah. And I think that's why we're going to see a lot of people start to do the whole ADU thing. I mean, that's a big thing here. It's a big thing here because assisted care or retirement homes are so expensive. $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 per month.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are like, we could just build you an ADU here, sell your home. We'll have plenty of money for the ADU. And then we'll have plenty of money to have a nurse come in for, 4 hours a day, 6 hours a day. We can be close to you. We have our own space. You have your own space. It adds equity to our property. Plus, you don't have to pay $8,000 a month to be in some retirement facility 35 minutes away.
Right. And it's interesting, right? Because like in places where you can do like an ADU, I get it. And they passed it here so that people can do ADUs in certain areas. The thing is that where they pass, some of the places they pass it, there's no way you cannot put an ADU. It won't
fit it.
No, you can't get it. You can't get it in setbacks. There's no space for it. You know, we've got NAOS space where it's national area open space. So you can't take it. You've got to swap it out. So you don't have the land to do it. So there's some places that you can do it, but you can't do it in a lot of places. So this whole thing that they said here, like, oh, we can do ADUs. It'll help with affordable housing and all that. It didn't do anything.
Interesting. And here we saw the opposite. Here they said, okay, you can do ADUs now. Like you don't need it. If you're a single family zoned property, you can do an ADU. You have to just follow building codes. Yeah. And they even pushed the setbacks back. They even reduced them. Wow. Because they were like, if we have an 8-foot setback all the way around, people are going to have to build an ADU in the center of their backyard. Exactly. And it's like, who's going to want to do that? And so now they reduced them from like 8 feet down to like 3 or 4 feet on the side.
So here's my question though. Right. So even that, right? Because the footprint of an ADU, I mean, it's not gigantic, but it's still going to take up a lot of your backyard. So don't you think I would think that in some ways that would affect the value because now you have almost no yard. Yeah. And it does. And it can, because a lot of the lots in the area here are 1/4 acre. So they're not like huge, but they're also not small. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, it's a good size. Yeah. And with a 10,000 to 12,000 square foot lot, which is typically what we see, you can still have a pretty good backyard. Like it's not huge, it's not expansive, but it's good enough. And then you can get away with like a 500 or 600 square foot ADU, which is what we're seeing most common. That's the most common size that we're seeing. But because of the way that they allowed the setbacks to kind of be worked, you can kind of stick it in a corner and it is possible. And then here, the ADUs always add value. They always, because people look at it like, oh, I can rent it out. Grandma can stay there. I've got guests that come into town. I can Airbnb it short term. Like there's so many different things you can do that almost every home that has an ADU, if it's marketed with an ADU, almost every single time consumers go, that's a positive, that's a plus. I want that. As opposed to, it ate up too much of the yard. I don't think this is going to work for me. I think there's a much, much, much higher group of people that go, ooh, ADU, that's usable. That's possible rental income. That's more property value. I want that. Interesting. Yeah. I don't see that here. And I don't see very many houses with ADUs. I mean, we've got houses with guest casitas.
Right.
Like that. And that's very different. And that's a hard thing because I've had clients come, they're like, we want multi-generational living. We're looking for a casita, the whole thing. I'm like, okay, talk to me about what you want in that casita. And they'll go, we want like a little kitchen and the whole thing. I'm like, okay, so those casitas are much more extensive and come with a much higher price tag on the house because usually the house is much bigger. Because here our code for most guest houses is you can't have an oven or a range.
See, and here, in order to call it an ADU, there has to be some type of cooking appliance.
So in those, oftentimes there's like a microwave and a little mini fridge.
Right.
But that's the extent of it.
Yeah. So like we have to have some type of cooktop. It doesn't have to have an oven, but it has to have a cooktop. It can't just be like a warming plate.
Yeah.
And in order for it to be an actual like ADU and for you to permit as ADU, it has to have a washer and dryer specifically for that unit.
Interesting.
That's one of the requirements. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is not too hard to do because now like LG and some of these companies make these like really small, like 2-in-1s. They're washers and dryers.
Yeah.
And you can stick them like underneath the kitchen sink. It's almost like you don't even know they're there. Right. And if it's only a 400 or 500 square foot ADU, it's not like you're going to be running a laundry for a family of 6. So.
Right. So Carl says retirement homes are out of the question these days because a lot of them charge between $30,000 and $508,000 a month. Why would anyone do that? Well, some would. So the best thing to do ideally is to save up enough money and buy a piece of land, then slowly over time build on that land your ideal home. Yes, it can be done. I agree. I mean, buy it in the middle of nowhere and then you build like little individual houses on it.
Make your own compound.
Right. That would be fantastic because then when you retire, you can go to the little slice of heaven.
Yep.
100%. But I mean, I get it. It can be done, but not everybody can do it.
Yeah. Yep.
So lots of people buy homes and properties just outside of a small town and then commute into the big city for work, which is a short distance away by public transit. It works. Yeah, it might work in some areas. It's not going to work for everywhere. And that's part of the issue is that sometimes when you go into some of these smaller, or when you find a piece of land that you can afford to do that, oftentimes it's way, way out. And there is no, like for you to drive, if you still need to work, and you have to go into work, oftentimes, I mean, it can be an 1.5 to 2 hour drive.
Yeah.
One way.
Yeah. That's what we see around here. Like if someone came to me and said, Joe, I want a nice vacant lot. And I'm just going to build a home. And, I work in Pasadena. I'm going to be like, okay, the only vacant, you're going to have to go out to the desert. There's no vacant lots.
Well, I've had people that come here too, and they think, oh, Scottsdale, I can just buy a lot and I can build. And, I have to have that conversation that in Scottsdale, we don't have a lot of vacant land left anymore.
Right.
So you really can't. I mean, are there some lots? There are.
Yeah, but they're not going to be cheap. It's not going to be like, oh, buy the lot for $30,000 and then just build your home on it. No, they're going to pull a premium because there's few left. Just like here, if a vacant lot were to come up for sale in my city, it would be one of 2 or 3 even that we have. And then somebody would want $800K for it because there's no others. So
Right. No, it's crazy. And then we talk about building costs and they go, wait, how much is it going to cost? I'm like, you can't just cost per square foot is high. Yeah. I refuse to live in a cookie cutter neighborhood where all the homes are the same. That should never be allowed. Well, I understand the thought behind it, but that was how I think that's how kind of affordable housing started.
Right.
So that they could just rinse and repeat. And start building these houses so that people could actually afford them. I mean, think back to what was it in the 1950s when they just started building all those houses. I think Sears was building houses at one point.
The kits. Yeah. Sears was pumping out kits.
I mean, that was how people bought houses and they could afford them for their families.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I think that's a little, you can't, I mean, there's definitely areas where everything's custom and it's beautiful, but I got to tell you, I've been in a lot of custom homes as well that I'm like, oof, this was not well planned out.
Yeah, that happens.
Not well thought out. Crazy. Well, Joe, have a great weekend.
Thanks, Shawn. This was awesome.
Thanks for joining me today.
Of course. I hope you don't melt out there in your 118 degree heat or whatever it is.
I know. It's quite hot. Hot. I know. Yeah. This is what we all do through the summer. We go, okay, it's hot. We know it's hot, but that time will come and the weather will turn. And then we all look at each other and we say, this is why everyone wants to be here.
Yeah. And my brother, I just visited Scottsdale about a month ago, and my brother was telling me, he's like, yeah, for 3 months, it is so hot. But let me tell you, November, December, January, February, it is just
even March and April. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. Adolfo, thank you. It's beautiful. I mean, I was just watching some old, those pictures, like the old memories pop up in your phone. And I was looking when my kids were really little and they were learning how to ride a bike, and it was February and my husband's out there in shorts and a t-shirt.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we put up with this to get to the beautiful, and it's all good. It's all good. Well, thanks for joining me. Thank you everybody for watching and joining in. It was great. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Shawn.
Bye, everyone.